Hello, it's Jessica Okoro. Welcome to the Stepping into STEM podcast. We are still on a mission to expose 1 million of you to the STEM industry by 2023. Today we have a special guest joining us. After studying maths, chemistry and PE at A-levels, Aman went on to study accountancy on the PwC Flying Start degree programme at the University of Nottingham. Throughout his degree, Aman has been fortunate to experience a range of exciting opportunities, including undertaking not one, but 2 4-month placements at PwC as an audit associate. Fancy. This helped develop both his professional and technical skills. Thank you for joining us, Aman. Okay, so Aman, the first segment we're going to dive into is Back to the Future. Not the movie, but back to your future, your childhood, so we can understand where you've come from and, you know, what led you into what you're doing now. Tell me a bit about how you were at school.
Definitely, yeah. So at school, I would just say, like everyone else, I would just describe myself as a pretty normal kid. I was very passionate about sports. I followed my home team, Leicester City Football Club, and really enjoyed sports. I also played tennis and table tennis, which is really cool. And I guess through sport, I sort of learned so many life lessons, especially balancing sort of my work life and social skills as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, the whole, Leicester City Football Club winning that year was phenomenal. I studied in Leicester, so I remember the energy in Leicester during that season. It was really great. So I can imagine you're really proud of them. Are you still supporting them now?
Yeah, of course. I'm a loyal fan.
You're a loyal fan. Good.
So that year was just a phenomenal year, and I guess
it was.
It definitely put Leicester on the map as well.
Yeah, I mean, Leicester's a really cool city, I must say. Not because I studied there, not because they just, gave me a degree, but because it's such an inspirational space. Imagine seeing people that were just normal footballers the day before to becoming, champions. So my next question for you is, what was you like with regards to maths? Was you a young Einstein? Did you love it?
So I definitely would say I wasn't a genius. But the thing I loved about maths and the beauty was there's always a correct answer.
Yeah.
And you can sort of use that structured logical approach, not only helping you understand sort of maths questions, but it sort of relates to everyday life. So, for example, when you're a young kid, sort of counting up your pocket money to go to the sweet shop and get some sweets, or sort of even watching the football and seeing the statistics, so counting sort of how many shots each team attempted. That's the great thing with maths, I guess. Through numbers, you can really build a story.
See, I used to be really frustrated with maths because I used to think that I had to memorize everything. And then when I realized that using the equations, you can actually get to the answer with any number, whether it's a decimal or it really felt rewarding when I realized that there was a system to it. So I can relate to that 100%. At your young age, did you want to be an accountant? Did you know what an accountant was?
So I definitely would say I was not really totally sure what I wanted to go into, but I definitely knew that a career where I got to work with a wide variety of people and be constantly challenged would be something for me. Like I mentioned before, sort of my natural ability to work with numbers made me feel I was well suited for a career in accounting. But yeah, I definitely didn't know sort of what the day-to-day responsibilities of an accountant was.
Did you have any family members or, close relatives, anyone in your community who was an accountant that influenced your route into?
Yeah. So in terms of immediate family, sort of no family members. So I'm the first generation to attend university.
Oh, congratulations!
So no family members in sort of the accounting field, but in terms of the wider community, I was quite fortunate enough to get on to do a work experience program with KPMG, and through that I was really fortunate enough to get a mentor, and sort of that was a really inspirational role model that I looked up to and thought, there's so many opportunities out there to get involved in.
So there wasn't any society, environmental pressures for you to become an accountant? Like, there's some families or some communities where, your parents expect you to become a lawyer or a doctor. You didn't have that kind of pressure, did you?
Definitely not. I'd say sort of my parents were really supportive of what I wanted to go into. And I would just say to sort of all the listeners out there, it's really important that you sort of do what you love and what you're passionate about. So although it may feel a little bit worrying and sort of a risk to go into a career where maybe it might not be sort of traditional, I would definitely say sort of keep an open mind.
Yeah, and I love it that, you've kind of suggested that, doing sports and doing all these activities whilst you're at school and studying is a good idea with helping you get into, corporate roles and jobs, because you learn how to manage your time and you learn soft skills that aid with the future challenges that may come.
Definitely, yeah. I would say sort of my competitive nature on the field and sort of on the tennis court, I sort of bring that into sort of the business world and sort of day-to-day life. And yeah, through sport you can sort of learn so many lessons, sort of how to deal with failure. So I remember as a kid, I think a lot of similar people will agree, but getting really frustrated and angry when I lost, but then you sort of deal how to lose with, you sort of deal how to learn with these failures and sort of be humble in success as well. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm very competitive when it comes to table tennis. So we're going to have to meet up and have a game.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds great.
Yeah, no, it sounds real great. I'm going to beat you for sure. So the next segment is the game changer segment. We're going to talk about you entering the PwC program and your experiences on the program. So what initially attracted you to the Flying Start accounting degree program?
So yeah, definitely. There was so many fantastic opportunities that really drew me to the Flying Start degree. Firstly, and most importantly, I really felt that the degree was really unique in the sense it allows students the opportunity to get the best of both worlds. So not only getting the opportunities to study at a top leading university, but also allowing me the stepping stone and getting exposure into the professional world. And in terms of the placements, this was really a great opportunity to sort of learn and network with a wide range of people. So yeah, there was a plethora of sort of benefits that drew me to the program.
And did you hear about the program via, an advert on Instagram? Was it advertised at your college? I mean, how did you hear about it?
So I was really lucky. I mean, I just sort of was actively sort of searching up online about sort of what accounting firms were and sort of the opportunities. And I was really fortunate enough as well, because with Nottingham, it was a relatively new program. So I was quite lucky in that sense as well.
No, I love that. And how did you find applying for the program? Did you find it difficult gathering the information, or was it really easy?
Yeah, so I did find it quite challenging in terms of, like I mentioned before, I sort of had no sort of prior experience. I mean, I think like you said in my bio, I studied maths, chemistry and PE. So I really had a limited amount of knowledge of business and finance. And in terms of sort of approaching the interview, it was very daunting, but the great thing was PwC were very supportive and sort of leaning me in the right direction in terms of what to research and giving plenty of advice.
Okay, so what advice would you give to someone who is going to have an interview tomorrow and they are freaking out, as in they don't know what they're doing, they feel like their confidence levels are really low, they don't have the right personality or skill set, they're absolutely wasting their time and they're wasting PwC time? What advice would you give them?
So first of all, and I think most importantly, don't worry about feeling that way. I think everyone at one point in their time has done an interview and they've completely sort of been stressed out and panicked. So first of all, don't feel like you don't have the skills or experience, because at the end of the day, everyone's in the same boat. And I would say sort of just being confident, and the way to look at it is, rather than think about you're sort of going to lose something, think about sort of the opportunities you can have. And even if you don't sort of even if you're not successful, you can use it as a great learning opportunity to move forward.
No, I agree with that. I mean, Did you do any preparation? I mean, did you find any resources? It was fairly a new program. Did you find any resources online, or, what did you do to prepare?
Definitely. So we were quite lucky in terms of with our interview, we sort of had to sort of complete an application form before. So we sort of had an idea of sort of what PwC were looking for. And also, like any other company, PwC has a set of core values and principles. And they sort of tailored their interview on those sort of pillars.
Okay.
So I would say sort of if you're sort of interested in a particular career or interested in working at a particular company, it's really important you sort of look at these sort of set of key values and try to have answers and experiences to help answer these questions.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to think about it from the other point of view and check that the core values and ethos aligns with what you believe in as well. Most companies, their values are quite, standard and positive. Yeah. So nothing scary should pop up. But, there may be some values that you may have that you want to find in an organization, and it is important to ensure that you align to it and it aligns to you as well. I'm gonna go back a bit and just ask some questions about the program in general. Could you give us some insight into that?
So the Flying Start degree program lasts for 4 years. We're really lucky in the sense that we both get university learning and also professional work placements. So in your first year, you get to spend your time at university, settling into university life, really allowing you to socialize with other people from all around the country and get involved in opportunities. So for me, I was very interested in sports. So I was really lucky enough to be selected by the university team and travel around the country to different universities and compete, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah.
Then in your second, third and fourth years, when you've matured a bit and developed a bit, you get the opportunity to go on placements. So they do throw you in at the deep end, but there is plenty of support. So this is a fantastic opportunity to sort of network with like-minded individuals and really get that exposure into what the professional world is all about.
And what do you actually do day to day when you're on your placements?
Yeah, so sort of no 2 days are the same, but in terms of sort of a high level overview, it's so you're assigned a client. So each sort of auditor is assigned a client for a certain amount of time.
Wow, so early on. I mean, wow, that's quite scary, isn't it?
So the great thing is you're not on your own. So you'll be in a team. So the team will be composed of sort of people at all different levels. So you'll have sort of the interns and placement students. You'll have the senior associates sort of guiding these placement students along the way, and then you'll have the managers, partners. So it's really fantastic. Even though I'm just an intern and placement student, I'm really valued, and I get the opportunity to speak to people at all different levels of the firm, which I think, especially on my first placement as a 19-year-old student, this was sort of really, really exciting.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of feeling like a company trusts me,
right.
To have a whole client to myself.
Yeah.
Or, not to myself, that sounds a bit weird, but but just having people that I can say, I'm looking after you, and this company trusts me enough to represent them, So that's quite rewarding. Did you find it a bit nerve-wracking?
I'd say 100%. I found it initially really scary to sort of think sort of they're trusting me with working with the client, and it was really nerve-wracking at the start, but I was really lucky to be sort of surrounded by people that were really friendly, and they really supported me. And I'd say the main thing is, and I think this is in everything, but just sort of ask questions. And sort of, I think that's one of my things that I'd sort of, if I could go back in time, I would definitely say sort of never being afraid to ask for help. Because there's so many times where, and I think a lot of people will sort of get this, but in school you're sort of sat, or in university you're sat in a lecture and you're looking at a certain slide or you're looking at a certain graph and you're just so confused and you don't know sort of where to start. But the way to look at it is sort of someone in the year above would have gone through that exact same experience. So it's really important that you can sort of have the confidence to ask questions and not being afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I know, I agree with that. Always ask for help, and it won't kill you. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? That's my mindset with that. What would you say to someone who didn't get the right grades or faced a few obstacles, along the way? I mean, did you have any obstacles? Have you got any case studies that you could share to inspire somebody?
Yeah, definitely. So, as mentioned before, sort of one thing that I really struggled with was sort of comparing myself with peers on the course. So, in my first year of university, I sort of had a very limited understanding of accounting, and there was a lot of people sort of in my year that had done accounting A-level or had done business or had done economics at some level. So I really felt it was really challenging. And there was one module I did in particular called business law. I really struggled with sort of getting the concepts and understanding how to sort of like solve the cases and approach questions. But I soon sort of realized that sort of everyone has strengths and weaknesses. And it's really important that you sort of have friends that you can help with areas that you need to develop in.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I'm glad that, you get the opportunity to actually build relationships and have people that you can rely on. I think it's so important to have that community. So we're going to slide into the next segment now. Are you ready? Yeah,
go for it.
So this next segment is called Relationship Goals. Yeah, nice. And we're going to be looking at relationships that you've been able to build whilst being on the program with regards to people and building a relationship with the organization. We just want to look at how you've managed to find mentorship within the company, how you managed to interact with people from varied age groups, etc. And just, any awkward moments you may have had that other young people may also experience. So my first question for you is, when you first started at PwC, being one of the youngest people on the team, did you have difficulties trying to speak up and express yourself?
So I'd say initially I did find it that I was sort of, I was a bit shocked to think that everyone around me was so much older than me, and I had limited experience. But I think I was really fortunate enough to be surrounded by people that were quite open and approachable. Yeah. And they really sort of encouraged me to ask questions.
And, did you still have that imposter syndrome that I'm still not good enough, even though you were getting encouraged? Was there moments where you still felt, you know what, I don't think I'm meant to be here right now?
Definitely, yeah. I would say I experienced those moments a lot of the time. And I think everyone at the firm, all levels, sort of go through those moments. But I think the great thing is sort of seeing my development throughout the placements.
Yeah.
So especially at the start where I didn't know that much, and then so now I'm on my final placement and I'm actually coaching other people.
Wow.
So it's fantastic to see sort of that development, and I think that's the beauty in the program. Sort of you start as sort of someone with limited knowledge, and then by the end of it you sort of have a lot more experience under your belt.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started my first corporate role, I think I really struggled with building relationships with my colleagues because I'd just come out of university and I just didn't feel like I could relate or they could relate to me. Yeah. And I was constantly, thinking I've got nothing to talk about. There's no similarities. These people have, big responsibilities. They've got mortgages, they've got families to look after. And I really struggled with building relationships initially. Today, I'm still in touch with a lot of them now, and I go for casual coffees on the weekend with them and hang out with them. How did you find relationship building with your colleagues? And what practical, advice could you give to someone that's going to join that environment soon?
Definitely, I'd say the main thing would be, and I think a lot of sort of managers and senior people say, is just try to sort of be confident and approachable. And the way you got to look at it is it's a two-way approach. So a lot of the times managers will say sort of the intern and placement students are very quiet, and that's totally understandable, but it's really about sort of what you put in. And also it's important to note that you might not get along with everyone, you might have a lot of differences, but within the firm there'll definitely be a few people that you can sort of connect with, and it's about sort of just carrying on with that.
Do you play table tennis with anybody at the firm?
So sadly, there's not really a table tennis team, but that's something I definitely sort of would look to sort of open up and and do that. I know in the East Midlands office there's a table tennis table. So just sort of bonding over sort of just a little game, and it's quite a nice way to sort of get a break as well from work.
100%. I when I worked at my first corporate role, the table tennis table was where I built my best allies in the company.
Right.
And I met people from so many different other departments. I used to host tournaments, and it really helped me build my confidence within the company. So I do agree with that. So my next question for you is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I can see you becoming the president of PwC, but you let me know what you think.
I think that's I think for young people, that's such a sort of scary but exciting question.
Yeah.
And I know that sort of in the world that we live in today, especially with the job market being so competitive, and especially moving, it's just changing all the time. It's quite hard to think sort of that far ahead, but I would definitely like to think that I would be ACA qualified and be a fully qualified chartered accountant. That's definitely one of my sort of career aspirations that I see short term. Also, I think it'd be really exciting, touch wood with what's happening with COVID, but it'd be really good to sort of gain some international exposure.
Yeah.
And to sort of do a secondment with PwC sort of in another sort of country and another division. I think that would be really exciting.
So PwC is all over the world, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's a global company. And I think now as well, I think back more traditionally people would work with one company for sort of their whole life. But I think now people are sort of chopping and changing degrees. So yeah, sort of just learning and having more opportunities would be really good. Yeah,
I can imagine that. And what would you do differently if you could go back in time with regards to this process of joining PwC and building a relationship with the firm and actually joining the program?
Definitely. So I would definitely say just getting more involved in opportunities and sort of not saying no.
Did you say no? Was you a Noah?
So initially, especially with the work social, so I related quite well with you when you mentioned about sort of building connections with other employees and feeling like you don't sort of have any similarities.
Yeah.
So sort of on my first placement, there were a few work socials, and I was the only one in the team that was sort of a placement student or an intern, and everyone else was quite a bit older than me.
Yeah.
But I think that's the fantastic thing with placement is you get to sort of network with people at all different levels. So I'd say just going back, I would say sort of just be more approachable and attend these work socials and not being afraid to sort of feeling like I was going to be left out, because that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd just say another thing is just sort of just being open-minded and asking more questions.
No, I agree with that. Thank you, Aman, for joining us today. I really enjoyed our discussion. It was so informative. And I just feel so inspired, having been a student in Leicester and knowing the kind of young people in Leicester who would find your story very inspirational and could probably relate to a lot of what you have described with regards to being first generation to go university and, having to learn on the ropes and build relationships and, get out of your skin a bit. So that's been really exciting. Is there a way that, anyone can find out more about PwC online?
Definitely. So I would say check out the PwC Careers website. Also, if there's any listeners in studying their GCSEs or A-levels at the moment, PwC offer a range of sort of insight days and insight weeks to get involved in.
Wow. Did you go on any? Sorry?
So I was fortunate enough to do an insight program with KPMG, but I would definitely say look at all the big sort of accounting firms. They all offer even virtual opportunities as well. And I would definitely say if you're sort of thinking about the Flying Start degree but feel you're not good enough, just give it a go, because if I can get in, I'm sure you guys can do as well.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners for coming online today. Please subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn if you have it, at STEM Socials with an S at the end. And join us next time for another episode of Stepping into STEM. I have been your host, Jessica Okoro, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.